want to welcome you back to 1x1. I'm Rob.
And I'm Sue.
And we're the Parkers. Today is episode 4, and we are excited to be able to shoot today. And then what we'll do is we'll produce tomorrow, and then on Tuesday, you will take over the social media.
I'm like the social media person.
That's your major role, and
Yeah.
you do such a fabulous job.
Not really. I'm learning.
Yeah, you're learning. You're doing great. So proud of you.
Thanks.
But I'm the guy getting all the camera, the sound, the lighting, and I drive you crazy with it, don't I?
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. It's not just that easy. This is easy.
This is easy.
It's the
this is
other
fun.
stuff that's not easy.
Yeah. So we have a non-sponsor today, a non-sponsor sponsor today. We got to figure out how to say that right. And it's Oakley, my favorite shirt.
Okay, let me just say this shirt has been worn so many times.
It was a COVID shirt.
I think it was worn almost every other day. Clean. Because I do laundry every day, and then it's clean, put away. I should just put it on the bottom of the T-shirts, but I put it on top, and it's grabbed frequently.
Yeah. And for all of our camping friends, it's a camping staple.
Not washed then.
Not washed then. Not washed then. I wanted to share a little bit about the week. We had talked about last week just some things going on in your life, and I really just want to share a couple cool things this week. As all of you know now, if you've been watching, I am a minister. Sue is a nurse. And it is the season of Lent. It's a season of really celebrating and remembering the death and resurrection of Christ. And as a church, during the midst of COVID, we've been really trying to meet in person, have our groups meet in person. We've been doing all the social distancing. Thanks to you. You've done a fabulous job leading the way in how to do this properly.
Some people think I'm a little rough, but
rules
are rules.
Rules are rules. Guidelines are guidelines.
Guidelines are guidelines.
Guidelines are guidelines. We want to say that properly. Guidelines are guidelines.
Guidelines.
And so over the last several weeks, we as a church have really been leaning into our worship services really hard, been praying for people. And it's just not been coming from me, from the front. It's been coming from one another. And I will say this, that in the middle of a pandemic, we have seen some really amazing things happening in people's lives. Lives are being transformed. We have seen physical healings. We've seen emotional healings. We've seen a lot of amazing things going on. And I just want to celebrate today that in the midst of everything going on, that I believe God's up to something good even during COVID. I know we don't want to always believe that or see that, but it's just been a great season of Lent as we're preparing for the death and resurrection of Christ. And so thanks for letting me share.
It's good. It's been a great week. Yeah.
Been exciting. So today we're going to talk about another part of our journey. And it's been an interesting conversation between us about what we're going to talk about, because it's very important to us. And there are going to be certain episodes that are more important to you, certain ones that are going to be more important to me. And in fairness to you, Sue, this is kind of one that I've been really kind of pushing. Correct?
Totally.
Something that really means a lot to me, because it's really something that I've wanted in my life before you. And because of you, it's been so deep. So tell us a little bit about the topic.
Today we're going to talk about honesty. So I think for me, honesty, if I really had it, because when we were talking about it, I don't know, I was struggling a little bit with talking about it today. Not that I struggle with honesty. I think it's because honesty is such a huge part of my life. I am a straight shooter, if you know me. I tell the truth. Exactly. Yes. Holster in. But I don't like when people don't tell the truth. I really struggle with it. Honesty is the foundation of me. So that's a non-negotiable. I've grown up in an honest world for the most part, I feel like, but Rob has struggled more with honesty, and it was very important to him early in our marriage that honesty was the pivotal point. And I was kind of of course it is, but he was no, you don't understand. Honesty is very important to me.
Yep. Yeah. Honesty, loyalty are really two of my biggest values that I hold. So I want to read a couple lyrics from a Billy Joel song, because this is really where it comes from. Every time I think about honesty, I think about Billy Joel, but I promise I won't sing it. I tried it before, and Sue said, please
He was actually trying it before the camera went on, and I was like, no.
No, honey, good try. So this is the chorus. Honesty is such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. Honesty is hardly ever heard, and mostly what I need from you. And I kind of want to break out into, no. But I won't do it.
Please don't.
I won't do it. But the lyrics are just so amazing. I can find a lover, I can find a friend, I can have security until the bitter end. Anyone can comfort me with promises again. I know, when deep inside of me, don't be too concerned. I won't ask for nothing while I'm gone, but when want sincerity, tell me where else I can turn, because you're the one I depend upon. Honesty is such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. And for me, I think it's important to tell the story, because when we first met, we had some pretty crazy moments. And I love our moments. I really, really do. And I'm not going to get preachy. I'm going to tell the narrative. And so, we had the walk, the crazy walk, right? The 2.5 hour.
A stroll in the park.
Yep. And it was great. I got a friend saying, hey, meet me at the duck pond. Let's go for a walk. But there I really felt I laid everything out for you, right? And you felt the same way, right? And you were a little shocked how I handled when you laid everything out, correct?
Yeah.
What was your biggest frustration when we laid everything out on the table?
You were not shocked. You were just like, okay, this is starting point. Let's go.
Yep. Yeah. And so when you leave conversations like that, you're like, okay, that was solid. That was good. But as we got engaged, as we were getting closer to like, hey, we're going to start preparing for the wedding, blah, blah, blah. I'll never forget, we went on another walk.
Walking is really therapeutic for us.
Yeah.
When we go through seasons of walking, it's usually because we have stuff to really process.
Yep.
It's true.
Yep. We're going for a walk in about 2 hours, right? We're bringing the doggies and we're going for a walk. But we were going through a walk through Allendale, and that was the hometown that I grew up in. And I know that I was fully transparent with you, but because I grew up in a home where I wasn't always able to be honest, and I hate to say that, but if we're going to have any real connections with people, I think we need to be transparent. I grew up in a big family, a lot of boys, a lot of testosterone, a lot of getting punched in the face by brothers and wrestling all the time.
I wouldn't be honest, I was going to get punched either.
A lot of wedgies, right? I don't even know if wedgies are legal anymore.
Probably not.
But there was this expectation of trying to just kind of keep up with one another. And I lied all the time. I lived a lie. I struggled academically. I had major learning disabilities. I was hit by a car in 2nd grade.
Okay, let's be honest. Let's just tell them the story about the grades at a very young age, the lying that began at a very young age. Come on, let's go there.
Okay. So
don't let your children listen to this.
Yes. So 8th grade, I had a fellow sibling teach me how to change my grades when they were bad.
Because it was paper, like
paper.
A paper copy.
Yes. And so we would take D's and turn them to B's. And E's into B's, and one of my siblings was like, yeah, try it, like you won't get in trouble then. I'm like, brilliant idea. Or whenever we got like the progress reports, it was, hey, if you go to the mailbox right away and you take it out of the mailbox, mom and dad will never know you got one. Well, you're the
reason we had to go electronic.
Yes.
Because
and so starting in 6th grade, I started getting those progress reports. And so I'd run to the mailbox knowing when they were coming out, be the first one home, and I'd take them and throw them away. I was terrified. And so,
but what did you do? To make it look more authentic, you said you dropped it in the pond.
So that's a report card.
So
the report card, I knew that I was changing my grades for 3 semesters, 3 quarters. And I knew I'm dead because when I did the 4th quarter, I messed it up. And in my nervous 8th grade mind, I scribbled it out and tried to write a new one. And I'm like, it doesn't work. So I put it under a water fountain to blur it out, and it made it worse. So all I did was I threw it away. I went home and I said, hey, mom and dad, got the best report card of my life, but it went down the river. And they're like, huh? Went down the river? I'm like, yeah, the river right next to Brookside School? I was trying to jump over the rock, and it fell into the water. And because they had 7 boys, they're like, okay, cool. Sure, maybe. And it was summertime, so it was like, whatever. Well, mom and dad read into the nature of who I had become. And I really remember that after that report card, my dad really was like, you're my son and I love you, but I hate liars. And I really don't like you right now. And I'm like, oh, that really cut to the core, right? And so when I became a follower of Jesus, when I had my divine encounter with the living God, when my life spiraled so out of control that I was going to end it, I had a moment where I had to be honest with God. And so I had a moment where I was just honest with God with everything in my life. Even though he knew everything about me, he's like, yeah, I know. And I just said, this is the standard of living from here on out. And so from that day forward, I vowed that even when I didn't want to, I would be overly honest. And that's one of the things that you always say to me, like, dude, you're too honest. Right? Why do you say that?
Because you say everything. Like, you have to say everything that maybe like you thought about or saw something that maybe wasn't appropriate. You tell me everything, and I appreciate it, but you're very honest.
Yeah.
Very extremely honest.
Yeah,
things that most people wouldn't think about.
Yep.
You know, but the ironic part to the whole thing is how much I don't like lying, and I cannot stand, like, if the rules are not followed, right? Like, this is me. Like, I get frustrated with people.
Yep.
Even if they don't know they're breaking a rule, like, that frustrates me. And I think, like, just to kind of circle it back to COVID right now, COVID has frustrated me because people are not following rules. And I'm not going to get into it because that's going to be, but like, even you're really seeing people's nature during COVID, because you're seeing people not be truthful about where they are or what they're doing, and I see that all the time in a school, and it's so frustrating to me. So it just brings it all back for me. But I think what's important to know is that if Rob and I had met at an earlier time in life, before
we would have never
he had that transformation in his life at age 19, we would have never been together, because I would have seen right through him, because I'm pretty good at that, and I would have been like, no way. His character, the lack of honesty in his life. So it's really cool how, like, to bring it back to Jesus, how he brought us together at that perfect time, because before that, we would have never been together.
Yeah. So I need to tell this story because at the time I had my major injury, playing football. I moved home, and I was a big boy. And Sue was 5'3", tiny little girl. And in that, I remember going for this walk, and I said, listen, I know I've shared things with you, but I really just want to kind of just cover my soul. I want to make sure that, like, you really know who I am. And I went through the partying. I went through the unhealthy relationships with girls. I went through a lot of things that really were addictions and issues in my life. And I said, listen, I've dealt with all of this. Like, I don't do what I used to do. I'm being completely transparent. But if I really want to live the standard of really, like, living right with you and before God, I need to put it all out so that there's no secrets. Because secrets, they're no fun. Secrets, what do?
Hurt
someone. And so with this, I just was, like, brutally honest. And I knew that this could have been a game changer. And I just laid it out there. I said, this is what I've done. This is who I've been with. These are habits that I used to have, right? Those habits never been a part of our marriage, never been a part of anything like that. And I can say that honestly to you and to others. I have never been a part of any of that garbage, which we can all relate to, whether it be relationships, pornography, drugs, getting drunk, any of that stuff. I put it behind me because I knew how dangerous it was for me. That's not part of who I am. That's not part of my life. And it hasn't been since before I met you. And I remember Sue, this girl who I was totally infatuated with, turned to me on a street. I remember the street because we walked down it all the time. And she looked up at me and she goes, Rob, and she had to look way up. Rob, I love you, but if you ever do any of that stuff again, I will kill you.
Straight shooter.
And I'm like, okay, that's not how I thought the conversation would go. But it was that intensity of the first walk that I saw in that next major walk that I said, and this is the girl I need. I need to have this. And in some ways, I think we need to just kind of push into this a little bit because Billy Joel's right. I mean, Billy Joel's prophetic. I mean, if we're going to be honest, and I'm going to use that word prophetic, right? Honesty, such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. And there have been times where we have had hard conversations with one another about the present, about the past, and about our future.
And honesty really has two. We were talking about this earlier in the week. Honesty has two components, right? So honesty with your emotions, what's going on inside to one another, right? Or to a person. But then being honest, like an honest look about yourself when someone else brings out like something in you that may be a character issue. To me, that's one of my hardest struggles, is when you point out something in my life and you're being honest with me about a struggle that you see or something I'm dealing with. That's hard when it's about yourself and someone kind of calls you out for that. So I think that's, honesty it's so many different components of relationships in general.
Yeah. And I think that's what I've really have valued, because in the beginning of our marriage, like we talked about our whole like engagement process and the 3 different things that we had to value. Like there are times that like we didn't want to be honest. there were times that like we were frustrated and we were fighting. And there were times that I'm like, I don't want to talk to her about this stuff. I can't even call her out, because if I call her out, she's going to attack me. Is that fair?
True.
And vice versa.
So when our children do it to us, the apple does not fall far from the tree. Let's be honest.
It's very true. And it's hardest when you're going through a tough season. And one of the things that I do know, what Scripture says, it says, don't go to bed in your anger. Because when you wake up, you're going to be more angry. That's all it means. Like, talk about practicality. Like, don't go to bed in your anger. And it's like, I don't want to talk about this because it's going to be a 2 a.m. morning.
And that's something that we really had to work on, because I love to practice that, right? I don't want to go to bed angry, so I will stay up 2 a.m., 3 a.m. until it's done. Rob, on the other hand, although he knows we need to deal with it, he does not want to deal with hard conversations at 2 a.m.
Yep.
Right? Fair?
Yep.
You're like, okay, I forgive you. Let me sleep. We'll deal with it tomorrow. And I'm like, nope, we're going to hash this out until it's done.
Yeah. And I think the bigger thing is, know your true self. Know your true self, right? A great philosopher wrote that. Know your true self. And I think what scares me with people, and not even like with people, because that becomes a little preachy. That's putting on other people. Knowing myself, that if I am not fully transparent with you, it means I'm not being fully transparent with myself. And it eats me up. It eats me up.
And what I've noticed about just in us, once you lose that real, transparent, honest, it's easier the next time not to be honest. And I think that's where, like, we talk about little white lies, like a little white lie turns into another one, and then it gets to this big lie. It's the same with honesty. Like, when you're not completely transparent, when I'm not completely transparent with you, the next time it's a little bit easier to kind of just not be completely honest. And that's a bad place to be. But I see, like, we see all the time why it happens.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you see it. You can watch children and why they lie. Are they trying to be perfectionists? Are they trying to show their parents that they are trying? There's so many things, but not being honest just breeds more dishonesty.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's be honest. Like, it is easy to kind of skirt the truth.
Totally.
And that's where we have to come back and say, listen, I'm trying not to I am skirting the truth, but I don't want to skirt the truth. Let's talk about this. So
I feel like we've talked about now that, right? Yep. Honesty. But I think the big thing to do is, what are some things that you and I do to keep each other accountable, to be honest to one another? I think some tangible things are important for people to know in relationships in general. Does not have to be husband, wife, dating, friendships.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things we have to realize about honesty is that when trust is broken, trust is so hard to rebuild.
Yeah.
And in a cancel culture, that when we break trust, and this is really Generation X's fault. Like, in all fairness, like I'm preaching about it tomorrow. That Generation X, if you are between like, young 50 to like 40-ish, I might be off a little bit. Like, we grew up in homes that like you did what you had to do. And if you didn't do it right, you were in trouble. And you need to make sure that you produced and you went to college and you just had to get there. And so I really think like we grew up in a time where like forgiveness wasn't normal. We had to kind of overproduce ourselves. We had to kind of oversell ourselves.
Much different than culture now.
Very much different. And so we're so protective of our children now that when we see anything bullying, right, slandering, racism, right, anything like that, when we see that, we're like, we won't let it happen to our kids, and we cancel people off. And I think that's true with honesty. Like, when someone lies to us, it's like there's no such thing as a second chance. And I really think with relationships,
or you start already thinking they're never going to be honest again.
Yeah.
You never give them that doubt. Like, you never give them the benefit of the doubt.
And you never move forward. And there's omission and commission, the things that we do deliberately and the things that we don't mean to do deliberately. And there's some things that we really don't do deliberately. And so I think that we need to really value honesty with one another and really be honest with people. Like, what I value most is honesty. I tell that with my staff. I value honesty and loyalty. I don't care what you've done, just be honest with me. Even with our kids. Like, we told our kids, like, hey, if you go out and you get trashed, just call us. Be honest. If you go out and do something stupid with an individual, if you're honest with us, you'll never be in trouble. And our kids are like, wow, that's pretty cool. So,
well, there might be some consequences, but,
But, hey, not the first time.
Right.
Not the first time. If it becomes a habit, you're in trouble. but we need honesty. And I think really laying that ground rule like that's a value of yours. And it begins with you being honest with yourself and other people.
And I think the big thing is when you're in a relationship, you have to be able to talk about frustrations, right? We frustrate each other a lot. Yep. Right? I mean, let's be honest. There's a day, right? Like, let's be honest. We say that a lot. And throughout a day, there might be a phone conversation. There might be a text that we don't answer the right way. And I think for us that we've learned that right away, identifying the problem and being honest about what you did that hurt me or vice versa has been very important for us as a couple.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that oftentimes we think about honesty, the big things, right? The gross things, the things that are so big and, visible to everybody, right? Mm-hmm. When really it's the little things that matter, because it's the little things that lead to the big things. It's the little things that lead to the big things that I think we need to really just work on that, and I will say this, I really believe that you need accountability in your life. Mm. I believe that when you have accountability in your life with people who know you best, that's when you can start living in that place of transparency. And I do want to be very fair to people. Like, guys have guy relationships for accountability. Women have women friendships for accountability, where they really do feel like they can go to that certain place where they can just say, listen, there's some things I can't talk to my spouse about. And you do need that place. But for me, I know I needed my spouse to be my biggest fan, my biggest listener, and the person that I could go to about the most important things in my soul. And not every couple's there. And if couples aren't there yet, then find a really good friend where you can begin to practice that. And in practicing that, then you learn to be more honest and transparent with your staff. Not your staff, with your spouse. I meant your spouse.
I'm a work.
No, the dogs were distracting me. Sorry. What about you? What else?
I agree, and I think especially for young couples as they process what marriage looks like, sometimes it's not always the best thing to just say everything that you're feeling.
Yes.
It could be very detrimental. It was detrimental for us during our journey of marriage so far. It has been, but we've learned how to perfect that. Not perfect, but we've learned the process of it. So there is a really place to be able to have someone that you can say, this is what I'm feeling. What do you think? And someone who you really trust. Yeah. I really do recommend for everybody that it's female to female and male to male. It's an unhealthy precedence to start of having a really good friend who's the opposite sex. I will say that.
Dangerous.
It's dangerous, especially when there's vulnerable times and you're frustrated or you're sharing your heart. But I think that that's really key. And, for us, we've had couples that we've had that where you could have the guy, I could have the woman, and then we could be together and hash through things, and go through life. I remember one conversation with a good friend of ours, and the wife and I were together, and we were in Starbucks in Wyckoff Boulder Run parking lot talking about stuff, and we really were just sharing stuff. And I love that when you have a friend like that, you can just feel like you can say it and you're safe. And I think that's what's most important, is that someone that you don't judge. And even as a friend, right? When people share their honesty with you, you have to be really willing to say, I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to say, I can't believe you did that. You're going to be a really good friend and listen and process together.
Yep. Yeah. And I want to bring it back to marriage. I think the bigger thing is this. And this is a takeaway. You're going to be my forever. Right? Lord willing, we have a long life together. As long as we are together on this earth, till death do us part, you have to be not only my biggest fan, but the place that I can be most truthful with, because no one knows you better than your spouse. But that takes years to get to. Mm-hmm. And so I do believe for couples, like, there has to be kind of that line in the sand. Like, we're going to start having these conversations now. That's a takeaway. We're going to start having these conversations now. And if they haven't been having them, they need to start slowly and saying, we're going to learn to do this together. And
not react. And that's, I'm thinking about when we first started doing this, you would always say to me, I'm going to talk to you about something, but you can't freak out.
Yeah.
Because I have that tendency to my blood boils very quickly. And I think that's important,
Yeah.
like you talked about with our children, like, You're not in trouble if you tell the truth. It's the same kind of thing in a relationship.
Yep.
I love you. I'm going to tell you something. Please don't react.
Yeah. I need you to hear what I'm saying. There's a reason why. Yeah. So good. So honesty. It's such a lonely word. Everybody's so untrue. You know what we need to do? We need to flip that. Honesty should be a word that we value, and we should be people of truths for one another, especially in the marriage relationship. Because when you're honest with one another, you allow your relationship to become and grow into what it's supposed to be. Any last thought?
I think honesty is the foundation of every relationship. And in order for a relationship to grow, we talk about having deep roots and rooted in soil. That's something in Scripture talks about a lot. We need to start that foundation with honesty.
Awesome. So this week, here's your takeaway. One, listen to the Billy Joel song. Okay, got to listen to the Billy Joel song. And two, practice living in that space of honesty and watch how it shapes your marriage. Sue, our marriage has been shaped so well because of the foundation of honesty we've had with one another. And yes, at times it's been hard, but it's been made the soil of our relationship so healthy. So thanks for watching us on 1x1. I'm Rob.
And I'm Sue.
And we are the Parkers.
Have a great week, everyone.